Hey, everybody, good to be with you. Hello, Beak Squad. Thanks for joining us for another live stream tonight. I'm David Burns. I appreciate you guys joining in. I've seen so many of you in the comments telling me where you're from. It's always nice to see all of you tonight. Wow. Tiny Trail Farm. We've got Mark, Anthony, Wildwood Honeybee Farms. Oh, so many of you are here tonight. And we have Jessica Fairfax as our host tonight in our comments section, as well as Sherry is here with us running things behind the scenes tonight. So glad they're here. I'm on the road actually near Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri at an event here. So glad I was able to get back to my hotel room in time. And I'm glad they have internet connection. So I didn't want to miss tonight. I'm excited about sharing with you guys about some mistakes that I've made that I have really learned a lot from these mistakes. So it's going to be fun tonight as we get together. So it's cool. Really appreciate you guys so much. I enjoy making videos, and I'm so glad that so many of you are part of Beak Squad, not only in the live stream, but you keep watching the videos that I make. And I'll tell you, the video that I made yesterday, or I posted yesterday, was so difficult to make. Oh my gosh. I was trying to show how you combine two hives. And wow, that took a lot of work. I spent the entire day making that video. Had a lot of issues with my camera, my sound system. The bees weren't cooperating. I had a thunderstorm. It started raining on me. Everything that could happen was just so challenging. So I know sometimes I making these videos look really easy, but I don't know what it's a lot of hard work. Sometimes content creators on YouTube, I know people kind of look like, man, I'd love to do that. It looks like so much fun. But I've done the math, and it takes about 1 hour to really make 1 minute of video by the time it's, finished. And it's just like crazy, isn't it? But I love doing it. And I'll tell you what really makes me most excited about making videos is that I know that I'm reaching out and helping you. And that's what really is important to me. I'm helping beekeepers not only with their bees, but I'm hoping that my personality or my enthusiasm, my zest for life is contagious. I hope so. Because I want to help people enjoy life. Beekeeping is kind of like a conduit for me to be able to speak to you, to be fair. I really do want to encourage you. I want you to be like, oh, I listened to this guy's video and it's about beekeeping, but I really was encouraged by him. So it's not just about bees for me. It's about all of us working together. And I oftentimes compare honeybees to people. Honeybees all work together. They're one big community, a super organism getting along, doing jobs together. And it's fascinating to me that as people, that we can reach out and help each other. And I think we're all touched by that. I think we're all moved when we hear about stories about heroes or people that did a remarkable thing to help somebody out. I think that warms our heart, And so that's what I try to do. In every video that I make, for the most part, there is at least some hint of that in my videos where I'm trying to encourage people. You'll hear me say sometimes, you can do this, be strong. It's tough, but you have to muscle up. You have to get this done. So I like that a lot. Yeah, it's cool. Well, I want to share with you guys tonight about some mistakes that I've made. Now, that's another thing on YouTube. When you make a video on YouTube, the privilege of a video camera that you have is that you can delete scenes that were a bust and just didn't work out at all. It's like, oh my gosh, cut, this failed. You don't show people sometimes all the mistakes you make on camera. And that's unfortunate, I think, because I believe that when we do show mistakes that we've made, I think it really does help people. It's like, oh my gosh, I could have easily made that mistake. So I'm so glad that he did. And so I think it's good to, I've said this before, but I like to say that if you're watching a beekeeper on YouTube, a YouTube channel on beekeeping, and they never make a mistake, or they always act like they have it all figured out, that their way is the only way, and that they've never had a failure, something's wrong. I mean, that's a person that the best people to help us are people that have gone through the school of hard knocks and through a lot of experience and trials and tribulations, they've come out ahead and realized, oh, wow, this is how I've learned from my mistakes. And so I have had such a lifetime of beekeeping mistakes. I could write a book on all the mistakes that I've made in beekeeping. Sometimes I make videos and you guys will say, oh, you made a mistake by doing this. And most of the times you're wrong, but sometimes you're right. I look back at the video and go, oh, I did do that wrong. I'm shocked. I just made a mistake. So I've got 5 mistakes that I've made that I think so many beginners or new beekeepers make that can really change your beekeeping, your approach, your skills in beekeeping. So I'm going to give you 5. And I scratched down 5. I prepared 5, but I scratched down 4 more that are bonuses. So I've got 5 that are important, but these other 4 are equally as important. So let's jump into them. And they're not in any certain order. Mistakes are just mistakes, right? But here's a big mistake that I used to make. And maybe some of you, when you hear this, you're going to be like, oh, maybe I did that. But number 1, are you ready? Removing too much honey. Yeah, I mean, you pay all this money, you tell your friends and family that you're getting into beekeeping, you want to keep bees so that you can have some honey. Everybody wants honey on the table. We know honey's better for us than table sugar. And so we want to get some honey for our efforts in keeping bees. And that first year, sometimes the bees don't make a lot of honey because they're using so much of that nectar and honey to build wax out. And so a lot of times we take a little bit too much off. Now, let me say a couple of things this way. It's astonishing to think here's this colony that's just hoarding up honey for the winter, right? They're just going out. That's all honeybees do is just gather nectar, turn it into honey, store it, right? As much as they can. And what do? We come along and steal it. And then we wonder why our bees die in the winter, and it's like, I've quite never wrapped my brain around that. It's like, ooh, that doesn't quite sound right. All the bees did the hard work for themselves, and yet we take honey. We rationalize it by saying, well, they made more than they needed. Did they though? Or is that just our way of kind of comforting ourselves and stealing their honey? So I think there's a balance. Obviously, bees can make a lot more honey than they need for a winter, right? Here in Illinois, I need about 70 pounds of honey. If I didn't feed them my winter bee kinds, they'll make a lot more than 70 pounds. So it's safe to take off a certain amount. It depends on where you live. We have people here from Michigan, Kentucky, various parts of the U.S. And so I know a lot of you are probably thinking, well, David, just tell me the formula. How much do I leave on for the winter? Tell me, and I'll take the rest. I can't tell you that because there's too many variables. How big is your colony? If it's gigantic, they need 1 or 2 supers, right? If they're a tiny little thing, they may not need as much honey supers on. And it depends on what you feed in the winter or the fall. Are you bulking them up? Are you going to feed them in the winter? Get this. Most of my colonies that I overwinter, they have no supers on them. I feed them my winter bee kinds. So I'm able to take all the honey off if I want to. Now, a lot of my colonies, though, I leave 1 honey super on just for insurance in case I forget to add a winter bee kind on it when I should have. They still have their own honey super on there. There's Brian from Castle Hives. Wow. Thanks, Brian, for stopping by. I see you there. I really appreciate the stream team, Brian and his Bruce and Greg so much. They're great. So yeah, you got to leave some honey on there for them and just don't take everything. I think first year beekeepers might get a little anxious to show grandma how much the hive made and want to give everybody a Christmas present. And those poor bees didn't have anything left behind. So leave them some honey, but here's the thing. You can't ask me for answers all the time. You're going to have to, if you're brand new or you're thinking about starting bees, you're going to have to really educate yourself. You're going to have to find out what is good, what does work, how much do they need, and am I going to feed them? Are they strong? You're going to have to really do your own calculations and research on that. Now, the second one is a really big issue, and it's something that a lot of people have never mastered, and that is the smoker. Now, hold on. Just because you think you got the smoker mastered, wait a minute. You need that smoker to run during your whole inspection. And that means some of you may inspect an hour. I don't think our inspections, I hate to say how long they should be, but they really shouldn't last an hour. Never. They should last 15 minutes, 20 tops, and you should be out of there. But sometimes they do. Now, when I'm filming, I've had my hives open sometimes hours, 1 to 2 hours, trying to get footage, going back and forth and trying to capture things. So I need a smoker bad. I need my smoker to last. So the smoker scenario, here's the thing. Now, some of you are going to be enlightened by the smoker. The mistakes that I used to make about a smoker is I thought I didn't need much fuel. I didn't think I was going to be in there very long, or I didn't quite understand how to keep the smoker going. Let's go back to the times when we learned to make fire in Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts. Okay, you got to start the fire at the bottom, and then you got to add fuel on top. So you can't smother it. You've got to add a little bit of fuel at a time until things get burning good. You have to have a grate at the bottom to hold the fuel off the bottom. I'm disappointed that new smokers come with the grate smashed down. It's not fluffed up. Most beekeepers never fluff it up. And so it smothers the air intake at the bottom. Check your smoker out, see where your grate is. Your fuel cannot sit directly on the bottom. It needs to sit elevated about 1/2 to 1 inch above. And so I've made videos, and some people have watched that and they were like, David, I can't believe it. I've never heard that. My grate wasn't fluffed. And so that helped them so much. Now, listen, one of my viewers on my YouTube channel sent me some screens. And in my last video, I put one in there. Oh my gosh. I think I lost his name, but they work perfectly. It's a real strong screen. It looks like it's stainless steel that goes down in the bottom and holds your fuel off. I love it. I'm going to have to really get his name, because this revolutionized my smoker in my last video. It was just so good. But here's the thing. Keep smoker going. And that way, if something goes bad, and it does, like you drop a frame right when you're done inspecting at the 22-minute mark, and your smoker went out because you got too, captivated by your hive and you didn't keep fluffing it up, puffing the smoke, and it goes out, then when you need the smoker because you dropped a frame or something at the end, your smoker isn't there. So you got to really learn to master the smoker. Here's how you do it. Are you ready? Go out there, play with your smoker, dedicate 1/2 an hour, not looking at bees or anything, but you're going to go out there for 1/2 an hour, play with your smoker. You're going to go out there and learn it. You're going to play with it. You're going to utilize it over and over again to constantly have very dense smoke. That's very important. So keep the smoker going. That's number 2. Number 3 is a lot of beekeepers. Now, I don't want you to feel bad if this is you. I almost regretted saying this a little bit, but if you start with one hive, that's usually not the best practice. So a lot of beekeepers, and that was my mistake too. I started with one hive. And my first hive I had before mites really were big in the country. And I lost my hive to mites, and I was no longer a beekeeper. I had to quickly scramble and get bees again. But if you have just one hive and something goes wrong and you lose it, they abscond or they perish from a pathogen or a disease or a pest, then you're no longer keeping bees. So if you can afford it, some of you can't, so I'm not putting you down. I don't feel bad. If you have one hive and that's all your budget allows or your time allows or your strength or whatever, fine, no problem. I understand it. But it helps so much if you can expand to have at least 2. 2 hives gives you the option to strengthen both. You can manipulate by moving frames to the other hive if one's stronger than the other. If you lose a queen and they don't replace her, you can move eggs from one hive over to the queenless hive and let them raise queens. It just expands your level of success when you have more than one hive. Okay, so let me say again, I don't feel bad that you only have one. I think it's great that you started with one. I understand it. So did I. But that's a mistake I made. I realized if I can expand into more than one hive, there gives me more leverage in beekeeping. And if I have 2 hives and I lose one, I'm still a beekeeper. Yeah. There's an old saying that says, one is none and two is one. And I like that. That's kind of the idea of it. So think about at least carrying along 2 hives. Very easy to do. You know, if you've got 1 hive now and you make it through winter, hopefully, then you can make a split and have 2 hives next spring. All right. What are we on? Number 1, number 2, ready for that was number 3. Number 4 is a failure to evaluate the queen. Now, this is a tough one because a lot of times we're so enthralled by what the queen looks like, what color she is, her color coding on her abdomen, and we just love our queen so much. But what happens is we fall in love with the queen even when she starts not doing a good job anymore. We think, oh, she'll get better. I'm going to keep her because, you know, I named her. Her name is Mary or something, you know, and I don't want Mary. I don't want to kill Mary. I don't want to replace Mary. You know, I love Mary. It's like a pet. I get it. But there's a point in beekeeping where you have to say, uh-oh, I'm not getting 2,000 eggs a day out of Mary anymore. Because if you don't have a good quality queen, there's no way your hive can do well. It will perish from a lack of population. So that was hard for me to learn the art of evaluating the brood. How much eggs is the queen laying? How many eggs is she laying? How much brood do I have? What is my cat brood? So now I'm constantly looking at eggs, larvae, capped over brood, not just one. You know, I don't want to look at eggs and say, good, I see eggs, my queen is great. No, I first look at the brood pattern. Is my brood capped over solid brood pattern? Good. That tells me I've got a good queen. But it doesn't. It tells me I had a good queen 9 days ago, 10 days ago, 12 days ago, right? Capped over pupae. It doesn't tell me I have a good queen now. What tells me if I have a good queen now? Or I kind of back it up a little bit. Do I have larvae? Do I have good pearly white, you know, glistening larvae? Okay, that means I had a queen 4 or 5 days ago. Now, finally, do I see eggs? That tells me I have a queen. Straight up eggs in a cell. The queen laid those today. So see, I do a backward evaluation of the queen. Do I have good solid brood pattern? Okay, good. Is there a lot of brood? Good. Is there a lot of larvae? Is it pearly white? Yes. Do I see eggs? Yes. Okay, there you go. I have a good queen. And so that was a mistake I made by not looking at all 3 types of developing bees. So that's important too. Now, the next one is a lack of bee knowledge. I spent years with very little bee knowledge. I started beekeeping early 90s when there wasn't the internet and there wasn't a lot of information about honeybees if you compare to what we have today. And so now it's so easy to get information. So we need to really learn to enjoy getting educated in beekeeping. Learning the biology of bees is so fascinating, so fun. And there's so much information now. And it's so easy to access it on the internet, YouTube, get a book, and there's so much. So we'd never want to get content where we are in our beekeeping knowledge. All of us, even though I'm a certified master beekeeper, there's so many times that I think, I don't even know the answer to that. I need to study that. I need to figure that out. And so we all do that. And the more we have knowledge and understanding, the more we're going to be able to pull our hive through the winter, and the more we're going to be able to make important decisions on what needs to happen with our bees. Now, I've got a few more that I want to give you. I promised to give you 5, but I have 4 more that I want to share with you. And that is, number 6 is going to be bee space. Have you ever made a bee space mistake? Oh my gosh. Oh, come on now. Leave a comment if you've ever made a mistake with not respecting bee space. Now, here's how that works. Reverend Langstroth really kind of nailed it when he realized that around a 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch is a magic space that bees leave open for them to travel through. But if it's bigger than that, they will build comb, burr comb, straight comb. If it's smaller than that, what are they going to add? They're going to propolis it. They're going to add the resins they get off trees and flowers and all the gooey substance, and they're going to put propolis or propolis everywhere. Now, what's the proper pronunciation of propolis or propolis? I think both are fine. I think they work. It's like creek or crick. And so now I do have a pet peeve of saying this correctly. One one larva, of course, is a larva, right? The proper pronunciation of more than one larva, are you ready? It's larvae. Some people say larvae, but the proper pronunciation is larvae. And it's the same with you have a single pupa. And if you have more than one pupa, you have a pupae. It's so easy, right? Oh, that's so great. I've been trying to promote this for so long, right? And people say, "Oh, you're crazy. That's not how you say it. It's pupae." But here's how I know the correct way to say it. I had Dr. Peck on the program on the live stream, but I heard Dr. Peck say to somebody else that when he was working in Tom Seeley's lab, Dr. Tom Seeley said, "David, you've got to stop saying larvae." He said it's larvae. So, all right, phew, get that off my chest, you know. So bee space, you have to realize that if you take a frame out during the season when it's really they're building up and you leave a gap, they're going to build the frame right there in that gap. They're going to build comb, and it's going to be attached to your inner cover or your top cover. I've done it on several accounts because I get busy. I pull a frame, I transfer it to another hive. I get busy on that other hive. And then Sherry says it's time for supper. I forget about the other gap that I have over there. And oh my gosh, I've made a video on that. And if I know a lot of you have done that, come on, you've left a frame out, and boy, that the bee space is just terrible. You know, bees really sometimes will build one frame out so thick that they don't even pull out one side of the frame next to it. So they are respecting bee space, even though they're not following the protocol of pulling frames out evenly. So they'll even do weird stuff like that. And so you have to do your part by pushing all your frames tightly together so there's never a gap where they can build crazy comb. Okay, how about this one? Number 7, swarm control. Now, this is one of the big ones that it's hard because, it takes more work, it takes more energy, it takes more thought. A lot of people will send me pictures. I'm talking about still shots and say, is this swarming? Is this hive going to swarm? There's no way to tell from the outside of your hive. The only way you can tell if a hive is going to swarm is not by the entrance, but it's only by going in there and looking for queen cells. That's the only way you can tell. It really is the only way. So don't think you can do it by looking at the entrance. Sometimes people see bees taking orientation flights all at one time and they go, oh no, they're going to swarm. They're getting ready to swarm. No, they're actually not. You got to go in there and monitor queen cells. That's what I mean. It takes a lot more work. It really does. You got to look under the bottom of your frames. You got to either tilt your boxes up and look under the bottom for swarm cells at the bottom that have larvae, or it would be a larvae in them, or you got to say, okay, I'm going to pull each frame out and look. So swarm control, I think, is one of those things that all of us, we find time consuming. If you have a lot of hives and they're really robust and growing, really fast, it's really tough to go out there and manage swarm control. So what most of us do, instead of looking for queen cells, swarm cells, we just manage it before that happens. That's easier. It's a lot easier for me to go out there and make a split before they get into a swarm mode. Before swarm season hits, I can split them. It's easier to split than it is for me to control swarm. But those of you that have hives that you don't want to swarm, that you want to make a lot of honey from, then you do have to use swarm control methods. You have to learn things like the Damari method. I have a whole video on that. Or Snellgrove boards. I have a whole video on that. There's so many ways that you can manage your hive to prevent it from swarming, but takes a lot of work. And in the beginning, I never wanted to do that. I didn't want to spend that much time. And that was a mistake because I had a lot of hives that swarmed on me, and I wasn't managing my swarms very well. Big mistake for me in the beginning was I didn't know that I should be feeding my bees all the time. And I just didn't realize that. I thought bees were insects that could get their own food. But I don't feed bees all the time. So what I do is I love feeding my bees during the time when I feel like that they don't have the ability to get much food. Hey, Brian, good to see you. Thank you for your donation tonight. I appreciate that. Really do. So feeding bees for me, I love to feed my bees whenever I think I don't have supers on. And so I feed my bees in the early spring because I'm not running supers. And if I do, I've got that on there for the bees to consume coming out of winter. But I feed them in the spring to get them built up. I put my supers on. I don't feed them when supers are on, but during the dearth, I'll start feeding them late summer, early fall. Thank you, Keith. Wow, you guys are great on making these special donations tonight. I've been wanting to buy a camera that's waterproof, but I'm not going to be able to do it, I don't think, because man, my camera is a nice camera, but every time it rains, I've got to stop filming. Unfortunately, I need to get a weatherproof camera. Wow. So I learned the hard way that my bees need fed in the winter time. And that was hard for me to figure out. How do you feed bees in the winter? But after a lot of time and study and my own kind of invention, I created this Winter Be Kind using some old literature on candy boards that I found in very old beekeeping literature back 17, 1800s. And so I incorporated new ingredients that people really have found recently back in the 50s and 60s that really help bees. So we incorporate that in our Winter Be Kinds. And I'm sorry that our Winter Be Kinds sold out so quickly. That's crazy. But I have learned we sell Winter Be Kinds. We sell empty ones, or we have recipes. We've always had our Winter Be Kind recipe on our website at honeybeesonline.com. If you look at our product, the Winter Be Kind recipe has always been there. Some people think I guard it as a secret, but I don't. Stacy, I see your donation there. I appreciate it. Stacy R is a B Team 6 member. I appreciate that. Okay, so let me give you another one. Let's see, I talked about those. Okay, the ninth one and the last one, then we're going to have some time for questions, is trusting only one source. Oh, that's a big mistake. I know now, wait a minute, it sounds like I'm shooting myself in my foot, right? Because it sounds like, well, David, I only want to learn from you, David, because you're a master beekeeper. I like the way you present. I just want to learn what you have to say. No, you need to learn from multiple sources. Folda, thank you so much for the super sticker. I really appreciate that. It's good to see you here. Thank you. Yeah. So one source can be limited. Even I'm limited. There are other people that have great bee knowledge that will help you, that have an angle on a certain thing that I don't know about. I don't do, or I don't practice. They may live closer to you or something. So having multiple sources of information is so helpful. If you rely on one person and that person is brilliant and they're so helpful and so right on, it's still better to also take in other information, because one person doesn't know everything. So you need to see it from different perspectives. However, please take that with a grain of salt, because sometimes if you have you're following one person and that person doesn't know as much as they think they do, or they have wrong information, then you're following a path that's not going to be good for you with your bees, right? Because you're getting wrong information. So if you increase the sources, you can evaluate it more. Is this person correct? You can get validation. Let me give you an example. So I spent years debating the whole pollen issue and struggling in my own yards about pollen patties and all that. Pollen patties are a big deal. Some people, we used to live by pollen patties. I've made so many videos in the 10, 15 years ago how to make pollen patties. It was a hot item. I bought pollen patties. I made my own pollen patties. You'll see me teach about pollen patty in my online courses. And then we had such a craziness with small hive beetle that love these pollen patties, and they lay eggs in them. Edward, thank you for your donation. I may get that waterproof camera yet. Wow. And so, we saw small hive beetle really hurting us with those pollen patties. And then there's the whole issue of, I think it's more sugar in the pollen patty than there is pollen. But then I don't know where I came up with this idea of putting the protein, the pollen substitute in the sugar water that the bees consume, because that's how bees actually get their own natural protein. It's in the pollen grain that is actually in the honey that they ingest. So, but years ago in my own field study, and I'm nobody, right? I'm just a guy. I mean, I know a little stuff, but I don't have scientific ways to do scientific studies. Wow, Terry, my sister has R6. Those cameras get expensive. Wow, I don't know what to say. That's a huge donation. And yeah, I think the R6 is waterproof. You're killing me here tonight. Wow, I'm going to start a campaign for a waterproof camera. I can film in the rain and get hit by lightning or something. I think there's a reason why we're kind of raised or taught to get in and out of the rain, right? So we don't get struck by lightning. But so, I feel like that when I started studying this protein more, that a lot of people fall back on, and I was following my commercial beekeeping friends that were feeding them pollen patties or making their own pollen patties. But it seemed to me that it made more sense because you don't always know how much of the pollen the bees are actually consuming and how far down the development cycle of the honeybees that protein is helping. So my intention and I learned that if I could assist the bees in raising more bees of winter physiology, that's where the protein for me really comes in play. So I can use carbohydrates and protein. So if you look at all the things I advocate, it's heavy on the carbohydrates, like a quart of sugar water, 1-to-1 in the fall. Right now, this is what works for me. I feed 1-to-1 sugar water to stimulate more brood production. I put 1 teaspoon of bee pollen substitute in that sugar water with a little bit of honeybee healthy and amino B. So a teaspoon of each of those. So what that's doing is it's giving a tiny little bit of protein. It's not a lot of protein. It's a tiny bit, equaling kind of what they get in nature. So that was just a life-changing thing for me. It really was. And it's unbelievable how much it improved I don't know if anybody else is advocating that. I don't see many people talk about it. Most people don't practice that. They still separate the carbohydrates from the protein, but I just really found mixing them together has helped my bees so much. So there you go. Those are the big mistakes that I've made that has helped me so much through the years of overcoming some of those mistakes. Now, I've made dumber mistakes that were just stupid, that I'm not going to talk about on the air, but all right, let's have some questions tonight. See what's on your heart, what's on your mind tonight. Randall Lane from Tennessee. Hello. Yeah. Anybody have some good beekeeping questions that you want to ask tonight while I'm here with you? I'll keep talking if there's no questions. Oh, Sherry says, wait a minute, I'm picking one. She's picking good questions from you guys tonight. It's got a thumbs up. Yeah. I see all these questions. Can't you put one up there, Sherry? Okay. Yeah. Sherry's still experiencing some jet lag from a recent trip. So I think she fell asleep on me or something. Lisa, how are you doing? Hi, all. Say my bees were is poisoned this late summer. Is the honey no good now? Oh, I see. So maybe your bees got into some poison. They brought the poison back into the super. I'm never comfortable eating any honey from a colony that has brought poison into the hive. Now, that's right. You don't know for sure. I would not eat it. Let's say I went out there one day, all my bees are all dead on the bottom board. Their tongues are sticking straight out. The whole hive is collapsed, it's dead bees everywhere instantly, right? Pathogens and diseases usually don't kill bees all at once. They slowly die. But pesticide hit like that, the bees are just boom. Yeah, I wouldn't eat that honey. It's too risky. Good question. You hate to lose it. I wouldn't feed it back to other bees either. It needs to be buried in the ground. Yeah. What do you watch for to tell when you start your winter bee kinds? Oh, I see. When you put them on the hive. Yeah. So here's the thing. So my winter bee kind was always and still is an emergency feed for winter. In other words, there's no reason why bees aren't able to store enough honey for themselves to make it through winter, right? But the winter bee kind was always my reason to have an emergency insurance plan in case they ran out. However, when I started using them, I figured out that bees were staying warmer. They were eating. When they eat, they stay warmer like we do. Um, and I also saw they were using the upper vent to defecate outside the hive in the wintertime. That was helping prevent more nosema spores from growing. So I would say for me, I don't really bother to put them on until very, very late December or January because bees should have plenty of honey to make it through, the first month of winter, right? And they should make it all the way through. So it's just an insurance plan. I know some of you feel like, oh my gosh, I need my winter bee kind right now to put on there now. I think my bees are starving, but I feed them liquid until it gets 50 degrees Fahrenheit or colder. And then I just will stop feeding them and wait until the end of December, first part of January, and put my winter bee kinds on. Good question like that, Bob. Good to see you, Bob Howard. All right. Warren, how are you tonight? How many winter bee kinds per hive do you use? I let my bees tell me that. I'll put a winter bee kind on there, and every about 7 to 8 days, I'll just peek at it. I've never had a problem. This has been going on for a decade and a half, 15 years or more, maybe. And so I've been able to monitor my winter bee kinds during the wintertime. And I live in Illinois where it gets really cold. I mean, it's just blistering cold, right? I'm on the prairie where it gets windy and cold in Illinois. And so I'll go out there in a blistery cold day and open my hive up. I'm not taking any frames out. I'm just popping it up, looking at my winter bee kind and see how empty it is. Most of my hives, I've had some hives that will consume one a day if I give it to them, it seems like, but no, usually no more than once. One will last me at least a week or two. And that's why we send a recipe on how to refill those. So I have about 4 pounds of sugar, carbohydrates, protein, and such in there. And so I would say on average, a hive will consume about 6 in the wintertime for me. But that's if they have a honey super already on there. Yep. Oh, I don't know. You could. I didn't know you could leave a honey super on for winter. I'm in Montana, so wouldn't it just freeze? That's a good question. I want to thank. Let's see. I see another donation. I want to appreciate that donation. Yeah, look at that. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Did we already do that one? Maybe I was talking. I didn't see it. Okay. So will honey freeze or not in a hive? It can freeze, absolutely, because bees could be clustered down below. And so the honey above them in a super could get hard enough to freeze. That is correct. It could, if you want to call that solid or freezing or whatever. Remember, we put a lot of honey supers in the freezer, and it never hurts the molecular structure of honey, never changes it. If you freeze honey, the minute it thaws, it's perfectly great, right? And so in the case where bees have a super way up above and they're not bothering to heat that and they're clustered below, then as they move up into that honey, their body heat of the cluster will thaw that honey out and they will consume it. It will be food for them. Good question. Yeah, it's good to leave a honey super on. All bees will move up during the winter, and you need them to move up into food. Absolutely. They're going to move up. Hi, Simon. How are you? Can't you take all the honey? Can't you take all the honey in the super? They have the brood box. Oh, I see. Yeah. If they have honey down in the brood box, why bother to leave a honey super on? There's several factors that it's really not a yes and no. It's not a one way to do it. There's certain, like I said, overwintered hives in just brood boxes, and they do fine because they have honey on the edges of their brood in those deeps. But sometimes, as I said, they move up. In natural habitat of a tree, those bees will move upward. And as they move up, they're moving up into stored honey. That's the way bees work. They store honey above the brood nest. So as winter hits, they move upward in the heat of the tree, and the heat of the tree and the honey is up there. That's how they work naturally. So we try to mimic that with a Langstroth hive. So if they're having to move sideways into honey over there and honey on that side, it may not be the natural way they do it, because think about this, the frames are in the way if they want to move sideways. It's a little harder to move sideways for bees as a cluster than it is to move up as a group, because it's a group, they're divided by the frames, so they can stay a ball, and the frames are dividing the cluster, but the heat is going through the frames so they can move upward. So we typically like to leave something on there for them to move up to. But you're right. I mean, if there's enough honey in the deeps down there, yeah, I mean, they need 70 pounds in Illinois. You got 70 pounds of honey in those deeps, they'll probably do fine. Good question. Yep. Oh, yeah. Can an allergy to bee stings be mitigated with eating honey? Let me first say I'm not a physician or a medical doctor, so I'm not at liberty to really give any wise medical advice. Right off the top of my head, an allergy to a bee sting makes me worried that it's anaphylactic shock. So an allergy, I'm not sure, allergy to bee stings, I can't imagine that honey would help with that. It's more of your histamine levels in your body reacting to a bee sting. I don't know. I'm just going to say I don't know, but I wouldn't rely on it for me. One thing that works for me, don't take this as the gospel, this is my personal opinion. The more I'm stung, the less I react to bee stings. My body kind of builds up a tolerance for it. But I've only done that by accident, like times where I'm working a lot of bees and I get stung maybe 1,000 times during a day when I'm working a package bee yard or something. And I don't know if it's 1,000, not all at one time, but over the whole course of the day or something. And after that, I don't seem to react, like I don't really, get red or swell up as much. But coming out of winter, after I've laid on the couch all winter long, hoping for spring, that first bee sting is a killer. Oh my gosh, it hurts so bad. And I don't really swell up that much, but I swell up more the first few times that I'm stung. Yeah, be safe. Yeah. Geo wine. Where do we draw the line in evaluating the queen? Are not the hives in control of the queen evaluation? Supersede yourselves individual indication of the hive assessment? Absolutely. Very good point. There's no reason. I've been spending a lot of time evaluating. We talk about Darwinian beekeeping. Dr. Tom Seeley talks about that. How much do we need to intervene with our hives and all? Aren't they capable of saying this queen isn't laying well? Should we try to supersede her, replace her? And they should. And I would say, 90% of the time they do, right? And it works great. But there are times that I've noticed bees will hang on to a poorly laying queen. I mean, I'll look at the hive and I'm like, wow, look at this. Look at the shotgun brood pattern. Oh my gosh, why are they hanging on to this queen for? They're not superseding her? So that's when I have to intervene and say, they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And so that there are times like that I just have to intervene. Yeah. But normally they do. That's a good question. Hi, Linda. When will you have more winter bee kinds available for 10 frame hives? August the 1st, 2024, I think. Oh my gosh. I don't know what happened this year, but the request, the demand for the winter bee kinds was just incredible. It was just unbelievable. So I appreciate that so much. But we're limited on what we can do on that. It's not just making them and pouring them. It's also the shippers that have to ship everything. It's a very intense operation. So, and it's a short window of time. So sorry to say, I don't think any are going to be available this year. You have to get on the horn really quick. August the 1st, they go on sale every year. Good question. Yep. Wish we could make more. Karen. As a new beekeeper, is it better to have 8 frame or a 10 frame hive? Yeah, here's the answer to that question. It really is going to be up to you. 8 frame hives are going to be a smaller footprint in your yard. Sometimes that's the reason. It's also going to be a little bit lighter if you take, what are you taking out? 2, 4, 6. If you have 2 deeps and a super, you're taking out 6 frames that could weigh, I don't know, 3 to 5 pounds a piece. So you're taking 20, 10, 15, 30 pounds off of the hive, and each box is going to be a little bit lighter. A lot of people enjoy 8-frame hives for that reason. They're lighter. There's, of course, less frames you have to inspect. It is a user decision. It really is. You decide. I've ran both, and I can't say I've noticed any difference with the bees. There's both can be very productive. So it's just a user decision to make. Yeah, good question. Lamar, how are you doing? What are your thoughts on feeding bees probiotics? I think, here's the thing. I had a discussion with a scientist, an entomologist yesterday about this. I talk a lot with other scientists and entomologists all the time, but we had this discussion, and I'm not going to say who it was, but he said, you know what? My opinion about bee probiotics is the same as humans. He said it's a lot better for us to get our probiotics through the foods we eat than it is to have to take probiotics. And, I've heard that before. You hear doctors or nutritionists say that it's better to get your vitamins and minerals through food, through different vegetables and fruit than it is to take the, I don't know, the pills, the vitamins and all that are synthetically created. Maybe it's better to get it through the food. But so back to all this concept of, somebody probably is thinking, wouldn't bees just normally have probiotics and the protein that they're getting from flowers? Isn't that part of the minerals and vitamins that are in the pollen grains? Yes, it is. It absolutely is. But I do think, I was in the conference that we had in Ohio a few weeks ago, and Strong Microbial individual or company was there. And they have some good statistics. People have done good studies about how these probiotics, DFW is what they're called, they're doing really good on helping bees. They really are. I've never bit the bullet and started using them yet. I need to start experimenting, I think. So I think it can be very beneficial. I really do. I think it's one more thing that can help. I don't think it's a magic answer to all of our problems, but I think it could help. Yeah. Is it normal for my bees to be going through almost 1 gallon of liquid food mix right now in 24 hours? Okay, well, first of all, it can be normal, yes. Secondly, let's check the lid. Whenever it seems incredibly a large amount of liquid, what I'd like to do is slide something under the hive, like a piece of cardboard. If you have a screen bottom board, a piece of cardboard. If you don't have a screen bottom board, slide something like a small piece of cardboard just for a few hours in the bottom board, and then pull it out, see if it's leaking, right? Because we want to judge whether or not some of that syrup is just falling out of the hive. But if you see nothing leaking and they're consuming 1 gallon a day, that's a lot. It just means that they need it. And you have to also, Stacy, look at the brood, look at your frames, make sure they're not just dumping that just crazy into your brood boxes where your poor queen can't lay anything anymore. They could be actually creating a scenario where they're backfilling the brood boxes so full of that nectar that you can't raise bees in winter physiology. So check that. Check for leaks. Check that they're not just ultra filling the hive up too much. Good question. Yeah. Rob Bees, how are you doing? Do you overwinter nukes? And if so, how do you feed them? I have overwintered nukes before. I don't do it because it's no advantage for me to do that. I have done it. I've done it by feeding them winter bee kinds that I made for my nuke boxes, size of 9 inches wide by 20 inches, or I will feed them some sort of, back in the day, I was feeding them pollen patties and such. And so, yeah, I don't get by with it very good where I live because it's so blistering cold. And I need about 40,000 bees in a hive to make it through these cold snaps that get 20 below chill factors for a week or so. So I'm a little too nervous to try to overwinter nukes where I live. I don't need to. In our nuke yards, we do sell a lot of nukes in the spring, and we do have nukes on top of different types of hive configuration. I have a gentleman that works that yard for me. And I know he enjoys a few of them, not many, we usually split them out, but he does try to overwinter a few successfully. It can be done. Yeah. He's really sheltered in the wind where we have that nook yard, sheltered from the wind. Mike, how are you? Do you think harvesting from frames of capped honey stored in the freezer for weeks or even months can degrade the quality? Absolutely not. It does not. I can't say never, never, ever, but from all the things that I've read and all the things that I personally have done, I just don't see it. No, I just don't. It happens in nature. It happens naturally in the hive. So I don't think that's going to be an issue at all. There's been some great old time beekeepers that are very notable that I've lived close to before, and that's how they did it. And they really advocated that. So you have a deep freezer, put honey supers in there, take them out, let them thaw. It's fine. Yeah. Didn't taste any different either. Guys are good with the question. Nature's wild blossom. As an alternative to killing a queen, what are your thoughts on taking the queen out when there's an active queen cell with a few frame of worker bees and relocating them to a new hive? Made a video on that. I did that late summer, early fall last year. I didn't want to kill her, but I didn't think she was doing good. So I moved her over on a few frames into a tiny super, a 6-inch super, honey super. And I just didn't know what to do with her. And then winter came and I left her in there. I felt sorry for her. And her bees, I put a winter bee kind on there and they started eating winter bee kinds. I made videos documented her success. And now she's in a hive in my other new bee yard that's stacked with it's all supers. I just kept adding more 6-inch medium supers on, and there's 5 or 6 supers now. It's a gigantic hive from that same queen. So it's not always the queen that's failing. It could be that they're not able to feed her well. She can't lay well if she's not fed well. But that's a good idea. You can relocate her. I have one now in my kitchen. I had a queen that I needed to go on this trip. And so I said, Sherry, I don't know what to do with this queen. I didn't get a chance to put her anywhere. So she's on the counter. Give her a drop of honey once in a while. Yeah, that's cool. Yep, that'll work. Happy trails to you. Could you feed bees pollen that has been collected from their hive throughout the year? Many people have done that for a year. Michael Palmer's known for that, gathering their own pollen in pollen traps and then putting it back in their frames and their cells or feeding it back some way to them. Absolutely, you can do that. Some of the new, recently, some of the pollen some of the protein powder, the pollen substitute that we're buying, they're actually starting to put real bee pollen in it now. And get this, this is earth shattering. This may surprise you. Would you believe that real bee pollen is better for bees than pollen substitute? It's amazing, and it's startling what you can learn on this live stream. Here's another thing I'm going to tell you. Now I'm getting kind of weird, but I'm so surprised that people come up with more and more products, right? They're like, I'm not going to mention names, but they say, oh my gosh, this new product, my bees love it. My bees love it. You know what it is? It's sugar. It's fondant. And people are surprised. They act like, oh, my bees love sugar. I'm like, wow. Anybody today could create a new product and make it out of sugar and put a yellow colored dye in it or something you want to, put something else in there and say, try it on your hive. And all at once your bees are going to go crazy because it's sugar. Bees love sugar. Bees love protein. I don't know why we're so surprised when bees love what they are instinctively designed to consume. It's funny. Yeah. How do you control moisture in the winter of your hive? So that was the whole reason I did a lot of studies. I still have all my scientific equipment that I used in a hive to determine what was going on. Why did I have so much moisture in my hives? So I figured that out. It's the contrasting temperatures between hot and cold. Moisture develops on the warm side of the contrasting temperatures, which is the inside of a beehive. Cold on the outside, water's dripping on my bees. And so then I realized how to absorb the moisture. I spent a year designing all kinds of devices that failed. And I tried everything. I tried all of the quilt boxes, you know what I mean? Everything. I tried all that. I designed my own quilt boxes, my own quilt box material. I need to get the moisture out of the hive. Voila, I made a candy board designed to be a little bit too hard for bees to consume until in the winter they make moisture from their bodies from the heat, and that moisture gets absorbed in the candy, making it more making it more edible for the bees. They can consume it better. So that's how I do it. I let the candy absorb the moisture, and the bees then can consume the candy in a more liquid state. That worked for me. That's why I think the winter bee kinds are working so well for people. Controls moisture. Got a vent on it too. Mr. Approachable, thank you for the $20. I appreciate that. Thinking about making a five-side insulation box that slides over the top cover and would leave a 2-inch gap between the hive and insulation for venting. What's your thoughts on that? Hold in too much moisture and not enough air. 5 sides. Beehives have 4 sides. Insulation box slides over the top cover. I don't know what 5 sides would be. Anyway, slides over the cover, leave a 2-inch gap between the hive and the insulation for venting. What's your thoughts on that? Leave a gap between the hive and the insulation for venting. Yeah, I'm never comfortable with that. I like to hold the heat in the hive as much as I can. My winter bee kinds have about a 2.5-inch gap that's by a 1/4 inch, I think. So bees could travel in and out. That was never our intention. Our intention was just to passively excess. Reverend Langstroth wrote about this, but getting rid of some excess humid air, wet air. And so that's all we intended to do. If you have too much ventilation in the hive, then you're going to lose too much heat, I think. But the only way you're going to tell is to try it. I really think so. That's where I came up with all my ideas. I tried so many things that were just disastrous failures. Oh my gosh. And then I hit on a few that, whoa, I had no idea that would work. So don't take my word for it. I think you should try it. You've already got a working theory behind it. So I think you need to go out there and just give it a go. Don't try it on 20,000 hives. Only try it on 1 the first year. We're out of time for questions tonight, and I really appreciate you guys so much for dropping by my live stream tonight. It means a lot to me. I don't have a Beak Squad shirt on tonight because I'm traveling, but I really do enjoy seeing more Beak Squad shirts being purchased and hats and such. So that's really cool. And here's a link here in our screen. You can get your Beak Squad merchandise and become part of our Beak Squad family here. Appreciate it so much, guys, if you would do that. And love you guys so much. I really do appreciate you. And no matter what you're going through tonight, no matter what you might be facing tomorrow, be encouraged. The best way, I've been reading some things about why people live to be over 100 years old. The majority of people that live to be over 100 years old, outside of having outstanding genetics, one of the things that they're noted for is their positive attitude. They did not dwell too long on negative things. That's hard to do. I'll be the first to admit it. But I think we need to really not get so down and depressed and kind of always stuck on negative thinking all the time. And it's really helpful to keep your mind focused, especially when you first wake up in the morning. Get up and get your mind on positive things. Hit the day with a little more positive attitude about things. You're okay. And you are you, and you're a good person. You are it's exciting to be alive. You should be excited about that. No matter what you're going through, I believe in you. And if we were sitting in the same room with you tonight, I'd really say, you know what? I really think you're a cool person. I like being with you. And I do. I really enjoy that. So thanks for being a part of our live stream, and be encouraged for the rest of the week, that's the weekend and all. I'll keep making some videos. I'm going to be back home on Sunday, and I got some cool videos planned. Going to wrap up my series on things to do to get ready for winter. So that's going to be a great thing as well. And I want to thank Jessica and Sherry tonight for helping out so much. You guys are great. Wow, I appreciate it. Even when I thought they weren't in control, I think they were in control. So I appreciate that. And I want to wish all of you just a great week. All right, so keep visiting our website. Keep watching my YouTube channel. Great videos coming out for you guys all the time. I love you. Take care. I'll see you next time. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.